Hannah Brown.
Chris McLeish, episode number 5.
My lucky number.
Is it actually?
It is my lucky number.
Oh, what's your reasoning behind that?
I was born on the 5th of September.
Yeah, there we go. That's the second week in the row that you've dropped your birthday.
My
into the mix there.
birthday. Also, I am the 5th cousin on my mum's side.
Oh.
I am, there's lots of 5s. Can't think of any more than that just now. But so how's things since last we spoke?
Things are fine. We are approaching that festive time of year, and happy non-opening weekend of Panto.
Oh,
This would have been our opening weekend for
sad.
Panto, which probably means that this past week there would have been a group of us, probably 5 or 6 of us, running about trying to decorate the entirety of the Kings, which is always a great feat.
And it very often includes the two of us.
It does very often include the two of us. It also very often includes painting, and it also very often includes trying to humph massive black boxes of Christmas trees and decorations down a teeny tiny little staircase up to the attic of the Kings.
Nothing makes me feel more alive than the threat of falling down a staircase at any given moment.
Isn't it great? If I had £1 for every single time during Panto setup, me and whoever has been helping have tried to take one of those big black buckets down the stairs, and I've suddenly felt its weight going against my legs, and I just go, yep, here it is. Here's me going face first down this flight of stairs.
But that's the kind of story that would get included in this podcast.
That is very true. Touch wood, that's not tempting fate.
Hopefully not.
But yeah, so, and I have to say, it is a little bit sad, I think.
I feel sad.
Because as much as we moan about it and we whine, and I would just like to put it out there, and this is me not whining, I promise, and I know I do have form in this area. Your actors and dancers and techies, and as much as they do an amazing, amazing job, they're not the only one working 12 shows a week at Christmas.
You are absolutely right.
And sorry, because again, it's very much a group effort at Christmas when it comes to Panto. Because it's not just those on stage and backstage, it's those working front of house, toting those programmes and flashy swords and ice creams and, dare I say the S word?
Oh, be brave.
The slushies. Oh.
It's more of a Halloween affair, I think. Slushies are terrifying because first of all, that stuff stains like you have no idea.
Oh my God, it's awful.
The sugar content, it should not be going into a small child's body.
It shouldn't. And like you say about the staining, there's still stains, blue stains on the Stalls bar from 2 years ago.
Yeah, that stuff doesn't come off, and I'm an avid cleaner. I will find a way of getting anything out of anything.
Exactly. I will back you. I will back
off.
you up there. You do an efficient clean when you are on a bar.
Thank you.
Just putting that out there, and I'm sure anyone else would be willing to advocate that as well. You speak the truth.
Yeah, it's really any job interview. I just go in and say I clean a lot.
Yeah, which is a good attribute to have. I feel, particularly at Panto, when by the week between Christmas and New Year, we have this thing in work, for all you workies out there, and if you're listening, you'll know you're familiar with this, but we have this thing called Panto Madness, where by 3 weeks into the run, because you're watching the same show day in and day out, and the thing is about Panto, it is quite simple in its dialogue and in its songs, because it's a family show and it's for all ages, but when you are hearing that 12 times a week, it does become stuck and sort of ingrained in your body, and it gets to the point that you literally go on autopilot.
And as someone who has done Panto many, many times,
yes,
it is easier by far as an actor to be involved in Panto.
Fair.
Because it is fun, and you're working, doing the job that you trained to do, and that's a gift in itself.
It is.
But you don't have to interact with the children, particularly.
Always a bonus.
You don't have to interact with Christmas stressed out parents.
Arguably an even bigger bonus.
Nothing is worse than a festive parent who just doesn't like anything that's going on.
Yes.
I like when I get a panto job because it means I don't have to be around for working front of house at a panto. I do enjoy it.
Yeah.
But the madness doesn't sink in quite so strongly for an actor doing panto, I don't think.
No, I can understand that, but
I would also like to take a quick moment to say that if anyone does panto and then complains about the fact they're doing panto, they don't deserve that job, and it really bothers me.
They really don't. It really upsets me how now in our like industry that panto is like frowned upon. I would kill to direct a panto. I would love that.
It's the most fun in a job I've ever had.
And I'm sorry, me being one of these children, panto is very much the thing that made me want to do theatre.
Totally. I don't think it was for me. I think it was musical theatre that did that for me.
Which is fair. But I probably for quite a lot of people, one of the first things they'll see is either a panto or a musical.
We used to see a lot of dance shows when we were kids. We went to see Riverdance. I'm sure I saw a couple of ballets. Mary did ballet. So I used to go and see her shows. So I think I was exposed to theatre from a dance perspective, despite the fact I'm not a dancer. But it's, panto is definitely one of those things, because it's school trips as well. Mm-hmm. The kind of thing that people we would go and see panto for a school trip. And yeah, it's so much fun.
It genuinely really annoys me when people say, oh, they have been reduced to doing panto, or any time it's spoken about in a derogatory way, because, again, I say, not very many people can do 12 shows a week. It takes a particular kind of person.
It absolutely does, because when you've got 1,700 people screaming at you...
Yes.
That's a lot to take in.
Especially if they're hyped up on slushy.
100%. Stained red round the mouth. But it takes a lot to take that all in, 12 shows a week. But I also feel that as a performer, my entire year, in a sense, revolves around panto in a strange kind of way, because I'll kind of, if I do I don't get panto every year, but if I did a panto or a Christmas show of some description, then I'd think, okay, so hopefully I'll get a job over the summer, get a job for Easter, get a job kind of maybe in the fringe.
Yeah.
But just something to tide me over till it's panto season again. It does kind of feel like panto is the checkpoint of every year.
Yeah, because that's kind of how I do it. I always break if I get any jobs, down into like yearly quarters.
Yeah.
So I've got like something to take me from like spring into the start of summer, maybe do something over the summer. If I'm lucky, I'll get something in the autumn, and then it comes back around to Christmas. And I mean, the most theatre is happening at Christmas, because you don't just have your pantos, you have your Christmas plays, you have your ballets, you have like big musicals like we have at the Royal. There's like so much happening.
I have to say, one of my dreams is to do a Christmas show that's not a panto, something like The Lion, the Witch and the Wardrobe. I would love to do that. I would love to do a Christmas Carol. I would like to play Carol.
God.
I'm going to put on a show called A Christmas Carol, and it's going to be me as Carol Baskin, but wearing tinsel.
Here, Chris, Fringe 2021. Just saying.
I'm coming for you. I mean, that's just an idea off the top of my head. What can I say? They just come to me.
It's very good.
You've got to create your own work, Hannah. You've got to create your own work.
That is very true.
Oh, yes. See, when I think Christmas Carol, I automatically think of the Muppets. So I was just about to say I'd want to play Miss Piggy, but I'm not sure that that's how the play normally pans out.
Do you know one of the best ever Christmas shows I've ever been to was when the National Theatre of Scotland did an adaptation of A Christmas Carol?
I can imagine.
I think it was back in 2011, because I was still at school at the time, and I went with my school. It was in Film City in Govan, which is like, I think it's the old Govan Town Hall that's now been like renovated into a film studio. And literally, they built this set that was effectively like a box. And the box was Scrooge's offices. So the whole show was just set in like the one space. And they'd like make you go up and chap on the door. And the ensemble would because it was just an ensemble cast, it was like 5 actors or something like that, would greet you on the other side of the door, take your seat, and then for each new party, like chap the door. If you're already in your seat, they'd make you stand up and clap. or they'd all make you cheer when it's like,
I love a bit of audience interaction.
Yeah, it was just brilliant. And I was like, this is the kind of thing that I want to do. Since we have been speaking of magical theatre times, shall we turn our attention to the Magical Hat of Destiny for week 2?
I would turn my attention to nothing else.
Fantastic. That is the right answer. So here we go for question number 2. Also, I've actually forgotten what I've written in these, so this will be as much of a surprise to me as it is to you.
That's exciting. Oh, I've just thought, if you have any ideas for questions to be put in the Magical Hat of Destiny, give them to us.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
Okay, I've got the question, and I think I'm going to know your answer to this.
Okay.
Because you kind of half answered it last week. Which fictional universe would you most like to visit?
Interesting.
So this could be like film or book or TV or whatever.
Okay. I don't know. So let's be real. I mentioned Hocus Pocus last week. I'm not going to use Hocus Pocus this week.
I was fully expecting you to do so. So that is a curveball.
Okay, well, I kind of have. By saying I'm not going to do it, I'm doing it. So I'm going to try and think of something else, because otherwise my answer to all the questions will be Hocus Pocus. Which brings me to a quick side note, which is I had to do a self-tape for an audition yesterday, and I had to do a lip sync to something.
Yes.
And I decided to use the cat spell from Hocus Pocus.
Well.
Love it.
I wouldn't expect anything less from you, dear.
Tell me yours, and then it might inspire me.
Well, you're thinking. So I've got a couple, because of course I do.
Okay.
They're both based on books.
Okay.
So the first fictional universe I would quite like to visit is the universe in which the series of Unfortunate Events books are set. Because loved those books as a child. Absolutely loved them. I don't know what it was about it. I don't know, because there's this sort of like Gothic, almost semi-Victorian type society, and there's all this intrigue, and they had these most like gorgeous illustrations on it. And I just was like, I love to do that. I love the whole like subplots with the secret societies and stuff. Oh, it was just brilliant. So that's my first one.
Okay.
My second one, there's another book, another young adult book called Mortal Engines by Philip Reeve, which I'm currently rereading at the minute. And it's a universe in which we as a society, our 21st century society, has completely decimated the earth. And in order to survive, the cities have put themselves on wheels, and they now drive about the decimated land, pretty much hunting each other for resources.
Fair.
And it's got like a whole sort of like steampunk Victorian vibe to it. And they recently did make a film of it. The film's okay. The film's like good to look at, just gone onto Netflix. But they did cut out a lot of the book, which upset me. That I would like to visit. I think that would be cool. To visit. Anything with a slight Victorian edge, I am 100% there.
Saying that, the one thing that keeps popping into my head, which I wasn't wanting to say, was Sleepy Hollow. Because that, again, has the kind of Victorian-y vibe. I love the idea of a small ex-pilgrim type. What are they called? Are they called pilgrims?
Pilgrims, yes.
So a town that maybe some pilgrims just threw up. Although I would rather live in them without the destruction of the homeland of the native peoples.
Yes, that's less good. Also, the Headless Horseman would also be a slight problem as well.
See, this is what I'm meaning. So I kept thinking of where would I like to go, but then I thought of loads of problems, which is why I struggled. So I would love to live, say, Sleepy Hollow, but then you have the issue of all of the disease that probably is around. You have the issue of the Headless Horseman. He is a problem.
Yes.
Although I feel like I wouldn't be one of the people that he'd go after, I don't think. Because I'm not a lawyer, a priest, or a judge or anything like that.
You're a wholesome human being. I'm sure you wouldn't be on the list.
Although maybe I would have done some kind of sacrilegious production where I told the story of the Headless Horseman in my own way, and then they were like, that's really offensive, and he'd come after me for that. But maybe. Oh, I had an idea. Fern Gully.
What?
Fern Gully. Because I love nature. If I was a little fairy living in Fern Gully, that would be great.
Oh my God.
Just so long as Tim Allen. Is that his name? No.
Are you talking about Tim Curry?
Yes. I was like, I know Tim Allen's not right. Because that's Buzz Lightyear. Yeah, Tim Curry So long as he didn't show up as a big black blob coming to destroy my my home. But I would love that. And then I'd be best friends with Robin Williams, who's a bat.
Oh, I can see you fitting in perfectly.
Okay, so maybe I'll settle on Fern Gully.
Excellent answer. That was a nice, broad range.
Yeah, I really went on a journey there.
That's
Perhaps
good.
I can stop off in Salem, Massachusetts to visit the Sanderson sisters.
I'm sure they'd appreciate the house call.
Yeah, I'm sure they would, yeah.
They would. And
then maybe just swing by Sleepy Hollow to see Ichabod.
Excellent answers this week. Well done. Shall we turn to story times?
Story time! Yeah, that's the new theme tune I've just written. Okay, so I believe I am first this week.
You are first this week, and I am super duper excited because this has been 4 weeks in the making, Chris.
And you're going to be so disappointed. Okay, so let's just fire straight in because I think this one might take a while. So, the year is 1908 and it's a chilly December.
Oh, so we're no longer in the Victorian era?
We're no longer in the Victorian era. We're not far off.
We're not far off.
But we have moved on into the 1900s.
Ooh.
Marion Gilchrist, a wealthy 82-year-old woman with rapidly declining health, lived in the affluent area of West Princes Street in the West End of Glasgow. When her father had died, she inherited a whopping sum, somewhere between £40,000 and £80,000, which is a lot of money.
That is a lot of monies at that time.
In today's money is 4 to 8 million. I'd like some of that, please.
Yes, please.
I'm going to change my name to Gilchrist and claim I'm related. Not long before her death, spoiler alert, she's the murder victim, she had altered her will to disinherit members of her family with whom she was on bad terms.
Oh.
Mm-hmm. Marion lived a very simple but comfortable life. She had only one maid, and her name was Helen Nellie Lambie. So she went by Nellie, but her name was Helen. And that was the only company she had. In her flat, she had her personal stash of expensive jewellery, but in recent times she had started to fear for her safety.
Not good.
Not good. You're 82. Stop worrying, Marion.
Exactly.
You're going to do yourself some harm. So at 7 o'clock one Monday evening in this December, Nellie popped out to the shop, leaving Marion alone in the house. Nellie had been gone for about 10 minutes, and when she got back, she saw the tenant from the flat below at her door. He said that he was in his flat and he heard some unusual sounds through the ceiling and had come upstairs to see if anything was wrong.
Okay.
When Nellie opened the door, a young man of respectable appearance came out of a back room, walked leisurely out of the flat, and then when at the stairs, quickened his pace and rapidly disappeared.
Dodgy.
Mm-hmm. When Nellie went into the dining room, she saw that Marion was lying on the floor in front of the fire and her face and head were beaten and covered in blood.
Oh, nasty.
When Nellie screamed, the neighbour from downstairs immediately suspected something untoward had happened, so he went looking for the stranger that they had seen coming out. But in the darkness of night, he was unable to see what direction this man had gone in. Mm-hmm. There was no evidence of a struggle having taken place. Her skull had been smashed and there were marks of other blows on her head and face. Her left eye had been dislodged.
Oh.
Grim. And the floor and fire irons were bespattered with blood and brain fibre.
Oh, now, okay, that might top your 4 so far for most violent.
It's really grim, and this one, for some reason, had particularly gruesome detail
lovely.
about the body. The injuries had been caused by some heavy blunt instrument and was potentially a heavy mahogany chair from the dining room, though some articles did say that the murder weapon was never found. So it's a bit strange. There seems to be conflicting reports on whether or not the murder weapon was there. But for some reason, a heavy mahogany chair is quite specific.
Did they mean like the whole chair? Or
yeah, I think it seems like it was suggested that the whole chair had been picked up and then used as a weapon.
Oh, good God.
Yeah, but as I say, not sure because other reports dispute it.
That's fair enough.
Robbery seemed like the most likely motive, and it had been carried out by somebody acquainted with the habits of the household. So somebody that Marion knew seems most likely. The injuries to Marion indicated that the attack was sudden and violent, which would account for the reason why no scream was heard. It was thought that the banging that the neighbour had heard had been the intruder beating Marion to death.
Oh,
so because she was on the
God.
floor, that's what the beating of her head was what was making the sound. The intruder was said to have then lit the gas lamp in the back bedroom, which was not lit when Nellie had left to go to the shops, and then begun to search the property.
Okay.
However, he only managed to get a valuable diamond brooch of a circular design about the size of a half crown. Now, I'll tell you, Hannah, I don't know what size a half crown is. A 10p?
Maybe.
That seems like a good brooch size.
Seems like a lot of effort to go, though, to steal that.
Yeah, to steal just a brooch, because there was plenty of other things for them to take.
Yeah.
There were other things that were scattered about the room. There was a gold bangle, gold watch, a chain, gold rings, but they weren't taken, but they were scattered around the room.
Okay.
It was noted that a workbox was found open and its contents, including papers of various kinds, were scattered across the floor as though the intruder had some definite purpose for his search. The neighbour and Nellie had described the man that he had left the flat as 25 to 30 years old, about 5'9", with dark hair and a clean-shaven face. He wore a light fawn overcoat and a cloth cap. Keep your eyes peeled, ladies and gentlemen. He could still be out there.
Chris, was it you?
It was not me. I don't wear fawn-coloured coats. How dare you? How dare you? Have you ever seen me in a cap? Try finding a cap to fit this massive head.
I've not seen you, but you do have that kind of like cordy coat with the
Oh,
wool.
my fake sheepskin.
Your fake sheepskin, that's a fawn colour.
Right, listen. Don't spread any rumours. I'm not 5'9". How dare you?
I mean, that's fair. I mean, I'm 5'9", so it's probably more likelihood to be me.
I think we found it, ladies and gents. Rest easy. They said that his appearance was not that of an ordinary burglar. Burglar? And the neighbour had said that if he had looked suspicious, he would not have allowed him to depart.
Okay.
But
fair enough.
They just thought he seemed like an ordinary kind of person. It is a bit strange that Nellie didn't think, there's this strange man coming out my house. But
I was literally going to say that. Did she just let him go past and go,
Now, I will say that the book that I have, which I will reveal the title of at the end of my story, is very good for some of the details to do with this whole early section. I wanted to look more at what happened after the murder, but the actual details of the murder and what happened the night of discovering the body and all that stuff, very, very good. So I will give you the title of that very soon.
Fantastic.
The police immediately turned their eye to a 36-year-old man named Oscar Slater, who they referred to as foreign-looking.
That could mean a lot of things.
Could mean a lot of things. Not justification enough to go after him. He was a German Jew who operated an illegal gambling den and potentially worked as a pimp.
Lovely. That's quite the eclectic occupation he has. There you go. What else is a man to do?
Gambling. Ladies. That's it. Yeah. Oscar had just set off for the US under a false name. Following an attempt at selling a pawn ticket for a diamond brooch. Wink. Which was later referred to as a flight from justice during his trial. He was arrested as his passenger ship approached New York Harbour, and during an extradition hearing insisted on returning to Scotland to ensure that his name was cleared. So he voluntarily came back to Scotland to be like, this isn't me, don't worry about it, nothing to do with this Oscar. Despite having only been in the city for 7 weeks at the point of the murder, it's believed that Oscar had been the subject of police attention before this all happened, probably because of the Gamblin and the Pimpin.
Fair.
He rented an upstairs apartment at 69, wink, St. George's Cross.
Oh, okay.
Which is part of the Charing Cross Mansions.
It is, which still exists to this day.
So 400 yards from the murder site is where he resided, because this is just around the corner from Marion's house. And he had a French girlfriend who worked as a sex worker from their flat, which I think is the perfect occupation for her, because it's 69 St. George's Cross. Perfect. What a dream. So that the business was probably bouncing, if you pardon. Anywho, at the trial, there were found to be a number of inconsistencies in the prosecution's case.
Okay.
And they were all covered up or simply disregarded, such as the pawned brooch, which was later to be discovered as Oscar's girlfriend's brooch.
Oh.
So the police were like, a brooch got taken. He tried to pawn a brooch. No, he pawned a different brooch. It was his girlfriend's.
Are you telling me they didn't even check to see if it was the same brooch?
I don't think so.
Oh, for goodness sake.
Yeah.
Honestly.
There were suggestions that the prosecution's witnesses were coached into naming Oscar as the man seen running away from the building at the time of the crime. It is undoubtable that there was a huge amount of institutional prejudice at play throughout Oscar's trial. Now, here's the thing. Never have I heard of systemic racism or institutional prejudice in this day and age.
What is that?
How strange.
Is that a thing, Chris?
This must be a work of fiction.
Oh, honestly.
Disgusting. By any standard, Oscar's trial at the High Court in Edinburgh was a travesty of justice. The evidence produced against him was very weak, much of it depending upon identification. The Lord Advocate led the prosecution personally, which is very unusual, and he wasted no time to make sure that Oscar seemed like a nasty, unredeemable man. Even the judge, Lord Guthrie, suggested to the jury that a, quote, man of that type had no right to rely upon the usual presumption of innocence.
Okay, this is vile. That is awful. And even more awful that still happens today.
Totally. And here's the other thing, is that this is a German Jew who, to the naked eye, would probably manage to blend in.
Yeah.
So I want to think what people in this day and age, what it would be like for somebody who didn't just blend in, if you know what I mean. I'm trying not to sound offensive, but there was no visual thing that gave him away as somebody who was an immigrant or somebody from a different country. Yeah. But if the people who did live over here who were visibly of a different heritage, the kind of treatment they had, I have no idea. I would not like to imagine.
It's horrible. And actually, do you know what? I feel totally ignorant in the fact that I don't know more about it.
Same, to be honest. I'm quite intrigued to look into it a wee bit.
Like I feel like this should be very much spoken about more.
Here's the other thing, is that Oscar was told or encouraged not to speak during his trial, so he didn't say a single word during the trial because they thought his thick German accent might make the jury look upon him unfavourably. So he couldn't defend himself because they thought, you're German, the jury will turn against you.
God's sake.
Which, to be fair, if that was something that was likely to happen, then that's probably a fair thing to encourage. But the fact that the jury would look at him unfavourably is trash. The jury voted 9-6 in favour of conviction. And interestingly, in Scotland, you didn't have to have a unanimous decision. It is just a case of the majority. So whatever the majority vote is for is the result. So 9-6 is what we have here. It's pretty close. So thank you to those 6 people who weren't racist. He was sentenced to death on the 27th of May, 1909. Unsurprisingly, Oscar was shocked by this verdict, and now his voice was heard. And I quote, "My lord, may I say one word? Will you allow me to speak? I know nothing about the affair. You are convicting an innocent man. I came from America to Scotland to get a fair judgment. I know nothing of the affair, absolutely nothing. I never heard the name. I know nothing about it. I can say no more." And Lord Guthrie took no notice of this plea.
Classic.
He donned the black cap and sentenced Oscar Slater to be hanged on Thursday, 27th of May. Executions at this time usually took place within the Old Duke Street prison in Glasgow. The tall parameter of that wall is still visible. You can still see it in the high street.
It is indeed.
And death by hanging was the mandatory punishment for murder.
Okay.
At this time. It's no longer the case.
Would you like to know a fun fact?
I would love to.
So after my story, I actually forgot to say this last week, about Maggie Dixon. Mm-hmm. Her case, in part, changed the language that they used when sentencing people to death. So it used to just be that the punishment would be hanging. But then after her miraculously surviving, it was changed to hanged until dead. just to check that they weren't going to like pop out their coffin. But anyway, sorry, I interrupted.
Don't you worry. Things are going to take a turn. Fortunately for Oscar, his lawyer, I want to say Ewing Spears. It's a strange name. Ewing.
I'd think so. Good name.
It's fun. He petitioned hard for the reduction of death sentence to a life behind bars on the grounds of circumstantial evidence. 20,000 people signed the petition and it was successful.
Well done, Glasgow.
Just in the nick of time. Just 48 hours before he was due to be executed, his sentence was taken down to prison for life with hard labour in Peterhead prison.
Oh my God, he must have been bricking it.
He probably didn't eat for days just to stop himself from literally pooping his pants every 5 seconds.
Good God.
The case then came to the attention of Arthur Conan Doyle.
Really?
Oh, yes. And he decided to apply the Sherlock method. He uncovered new evidence, uncalled witnesses, and questioned the prosecution's evidence. His findings were published as a plea for Oscar's pardon in the case of Oscar Slater in 1912. It caused a sensation and there were calls for a retrial, but that was promptly ignored by the authorities in Glasgow despite how narrow the majority had been. Remember, 9-6. Okay. Even at his 1928 hearing, Oscar's conviction was not dropped, but it was merely acknowledged that he hadn't received a fair trial and the judge had influenced the jury. So they were like, listen, Oscar, we get it. We see the trial was not fair. We see the jury had been influenced by the judge. That's really poor show, but your conviction's going to stay the same.
Okay, less good.
Less good, but
less good.
Arthur's trying. During a secret inquiry in 1914, a respected police officer, Detective Lieutenant John Thompson Trench, which is quite the mouthful,
wow.
What a name! He provided previously withheld evidence from the original police case, stating that the family of Marion Gilchrist all suspected and accused each other.
Oh.
Now remember, it was believed initially that it was someone who was familiar with the household, was familiar with the movements within the household, someone who looked as though they knew what they were looking for in amongst Marion's papers. The only thing taken was a brooch. Yeah, Marion's family all thought it might have been each other. But Trench was fired from his position as a detective, discredited, and eventually framed for his part in this inquiry.
I'm sorry, they sacked him for trying to find out the truth?
Absolutely, because essentially he was casting doubt upon the judge, the prosecution, the police handling of the case. He was, not good.
Right. I have many questions for the Glasgow police force between the years of 1860 and 19 whatever.
I'll get them on the phone for the end of the episode. We'll have a quick chat.
I've
got an email.
Just between the other 3 stories we've had so far, it's kind of a repeated theme at the moment.
I feel like this was not a good period of history for how the police handled things.
It really wasn't.
No. He kept documents from the original case proving his integrity a secret and sadly died in 1919 at the age of 50. But his widow forwarded these documents to Conan Doyle. This document, along with alleged secret messages smuggled out of Peterhead prison from Oscar, reignited Conan Doyle's interest. A Glasgow journalist called William Park wrote a book called The Truth About Oscar Slater, and it came out in time when the pressure to release Oscar had become irresistible. He had already served considerably more than 15 years usually demanded of those sentenced to life imprisonment. And about this time, Oscar had the idea of appealing directly to Sir Arthur Conan Doyle himself. Employed in the prison's bookbinding workshop, he wrote a message on a scrap of glossy paper, which was then rolled into a tiny ball and hidden under the tongue of a fellow prisoner about to be discharged. This man took the message to Conan Doyle in London, and it said, "Please try again, Oscar Slater." So how good thinking, Oscar?
That's an excellent plan.
Yes.
Wow, that's brilliant. I love that.
And I love the use of glossy paper.
Yes, specific. That's quite specific. Specific type of paper.
I wonder if it's like it's got a slight laminated vibe so that it doesn't get soggy.
Yeah, but see, even better. Like, just the thinking. Well done. Full marks, Oscar.
And it would be a tiny ball because that is a very short message.
Yeah, that one single line.
Please try again, Oscar Slater. And he did. Arthur Conan Doyle took up the case again and exerted his influence, writing to politicians, and used his own money to fund the legal fees attached to Oscar's name. One of those politicians was Ramsay MacDonald. Ramsay wrote to the Scottish Secretary in October 1927, drawing their attention to the fact the prosecution withheld evidence, didn't call upon important witnesses, and colluded to ensure the guilty verdict of Oscar.
Okay.
Luckily, Oscar was released from prison on November 8th, 1927, with the authorization of the Secretary of State. The Secretary of State for Scotland. Mm-hmm.
Yay!
Oscar left Peterhead Prison, having been awarded £6,000 in compensation, which in today's money is £300,000.
I wouldn't say no to that.
Neither would I, but I wouldn't like to go to prison for more than 15 years.
I mean, no, I'm not willing to do that, but the 300 grand would be lovely.
But his name was never actually cleared of the charges.
Oh.
From then, he lived quietly in Ayr, marrying again in 1936, working as an antique repairman, and by all accounts was very popular in town. He and his wife were briefly interred.
Interred?
I wrote the word interned. They weren't interned. They were interred at the start of the Second World War as enemy aliens because they were born in Germany, though Oscar had long since lost his German citizenship and had never returned to Germany.
Okay, so he was fine then.
He was fine, but sadly most of his surviving family, including his two sisters, ultimately did die in the Holocaust.
Oh no.
Yeah. Oscar himself died in 1949 in Ayrshire, aged 75, broken only by his time in internment at the start of World War II. A local newspaper described him as a reprieved murderer and friend of Arthur Conan Doyle. So he never really fully shook off the whole murderer thing, which is a shame. But he seemed to live relatively peacefully in Ayr.
Yes. Good.
Yeah. Well done. Even now, the curious case of Oscar Slater raises controversy. Many defence lawyers, including acclaimed former criminal defence solicitor Joe Baltrame, are vehement in their belief that this constitutes one of the most notable miscarriages of justice in Scottish legal history. Which I'm glad about, that even now it's used as an example of things being done incredibly poorly.
Yep. That's an understatement.
Yes. Author of Oscar Slater, The Immortal Case of Sir Arthur Conan Doyle, Thomas Tuffhill is his name. He drew his own conclusions and they were pretty damning about the whole affair.
Oh.
He believes the case was a monstrous conspiracy, breathtaking in its audacity, that extended to the highest levels of the Scottish legal establishment. And I quote, Alexander Urey, who I haven't mentioned in this story, but I believe he was the prosecution. Okay, I might redact his name just for the sake of this story. Oh no, he features quite a lot actually. Oh, bothers. Who the hell's Alexander Urey? Okay, so this is Chris McLeish from the future, and I am editing, and I have looked up Alexander Urey. He was the Lord Advocate, which is the guy who oversaw the whole case. He later became the Lord President Baron Strathclyde, and he was known to have rejected loads and loads of evidence that would have cleared Slater. He concealed the American transcripts, invented facts, and went along with the police conspiracy to frame Slater that included a ludicrous identification parade featuring the medium height and stocky Slater among a lineup of 9 veritable giants who were all off-duty Glasgow policemen. So he's a bad guy. Alexander Urey was involved in the investigation into Miss Gilchrist from the very outset. He was involved in the protection of his Charteris friends, the nephews of whom Miss Gilchrist wished to disinherit from the very beginning. It was Urey's influence which accounts for the actions of the Procurator Fiscal and the Glasgow Police. Before and after Slater's return from America, it would have been unthinkable to the conspirators that the sons of a professor and nephews of a scion of the Church of Scotland, that is the Charteris brothers, would have been publicly involved in a murder case. Now, once again, we're struck by what I think is confusing use of language in olden times text.
I mean, that's fair. That's quite a lot of words going on there.
Quite a lot of words, and it feels like you get the end of the paragraph and you still don't know what you've just heard. But I will summarize that I believe Alexander Urey is believed to have covered up because he's got friends who were related to Miss Gilchrist and she wanted to disinherit them, and he wanted to protect them from being publicly involved in a murder case.
Oh, so he thinks that they might have been implicated in it?
Yes.
Right.
And I would not be surprised if his friends were potentially the ones who did it, to be honest.
It would explain a lot.
So several names have been put forth as the real murderer of Marion Gilchrist, and authors continue to put forward new theories, but it may forever remain a mystery.
Oh, I was really dreading that you were going to get to the end of that story and then go, and actually, Oscar confessed to the murder.
No. I fully believe that Oscar was not guilty of anything. The report of him running a gambling den and also running operating as a pimp.
Yeah.
That was only in one article, and I feel kind of bad that I've put that in because it's not been backed up by every article I've read, but it was mentioned that he was known to be at gambling dens.
Okay.
And the fact that his girlfriend did work as a sex worker may be the reason they've come up with him being a pimp.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I would almost, with some certainty, say he wasn't a pimp, he just had a sex worker girlfriend, and that he was a fan of gambling. I don't know.
Okay. Yeah, but I mean, given the way that they were treating him in the case, they probably would have said anything just to, sort of defame his character.
Yeah, true, exactly. So it may just be that that's the report, though that quote came from a report that was not particularly favourable. So now, would you like to know the link?
I would very much indeed like to know the link.
So we've spoken about Madeline Smith, Jessie McLachlan, Dr. Pritchard, and now Oscar Slater.
Okay.
So in 1961,
yes,
a journalist and author, Jack House, wrote a book about these 4 murders that I've covered over the past 4 weeks. And he coined the term the square mile of murder, because these 4 cases are 4 of Scotland's most notorious and well-known murders, and they all occurred within 1 square mile of Glasgow.
That is a fantastic link.
Thank you. 3 of which happened within 8 years of one another.
Oh, that's very interesting.
I thought so. So he subtitled the cases. So we've got a kiss, a fond embrace, the man who did, the human crocodile, and the man who didn't.
Okay.
Fun.
Love it.
So the square mile of murder stretches northwards from Blytheswood Hill in the western end of Glasgow city centre to Sauchiehall Street, and then west towards Charing Cross area. And it's now bisected by the M8 motorway. So the area where A, the King's Theatre is,
yes,
and B, a road that I take if ever I come to visit you, is exactly where these 4 murders happened.
We love a link.
Oh, yeah. Although there seems to be no actual connection between the murders, some have suggested that this abnormal concentration of high-profile murder cases points to the fact the area could be cursed.
It would explain a lot.
It would explain a lot. There was a 1980 6-part dramatisation of Jack House's book starring Ricky Fulton and Tony Roper.
Classic. We love them.
Although they're normally funny men, can't imagine that story that dramatization being a comedy.
Very good point.
Boo, 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 boo. Stab. Nobody was stabbed in any of my murders. So that joke's acceptable. Now, in the Square Mile of Murder book, I was able to come across a couple of other connections, which I thought were quite fun. So I'll tell you them as well. Dr. Pritchard from the Cream and Crocodile case bought poisons from two chemists, Murdoch's and Curry's, which were on Sauchiehall Street.
Yes. They
were the same chemists that provided Madeline Smith with her arsenic 7 years before.
Oh.
Yep. In 1860, the position of chair of surgery became vacant, and Dr. Pritchard had gone for that. He supplied a flurry of recommendation letters from English doctors, but it was highly suspected that these were all faked. The man who ended up getting the chair position was Dr. MacLeod, who later went on to take a footprint from Jessie McLachlan when she was accused of murdering Jess McPherson.
That is crazy. What the hell?
Yeah. So cool. Like Madeline and unlike Jessie, Dr. Pritchard was tried by 3 judges in Edinburgh, one of whom was Lord Ingalls, the senior judge, and he had also tried Madeline. So he'd probably learned a fair bit about poisons in his time as a senior judge, because we've got Madeline Smith, we've got Dr. Pritchard. Among the prosecuting counsel was Adam Gifford, who represented the Crown in the case against Jessie McLachlan. So Dr. Pritchard and Jessie McLachlan were both on the opposing side by the same man, Adam Gifford.
What?
And then finally, Mr. Rutherford Clark was Dr. Pritchard's chief defender, and he was also the defender of Jessie McLachlan.
Oh my God, that is brilliant.
Fun.
What a link.
Yeah.
That's insane. But that's just so weird that all of those things, like all these people would have been kind of aware of these other things happening at that time.
Totally. Dr. Pritchard probably sat next to a fire, giving his wife poisoned tapioca, reading about Madeline Smith. Or, well, no, because the timeline doesn't work out for that to happen. But you know what I mean. So I highly recommend this book.
What's it called and who wrote it?
So it is written by Jack House, and it is called The Square Mile of Murder.
Fantastic.
It's from 1961. There weren't many copies on Amazon. Well, there wasn't many copies anywhere else, which is why I had to resort to Amazon. Do you know what I mean?
Fair.
Yeah.
That's fair. Sometimes it is our only option.
It's the only way. I also needed it fast, so I needed it to come quickly, and I thought Amazon's the way to go. But I think I might have bought one of 2 copies that were on sale. So you can borrow it.
Well done.
It's got pictures and everything.
We do love a picture book.
And, wait a minute, I'm having an aero bubble. At the very, very end, it's got a whole little chapter about how respectability played a factor in all of the cases, which I find so fascinating, but I didn't think it worth putting in the episode. And once again, here I am bringing it up, despite the fact I said I wasn't going to feature it. But essentially talking about how Madeline Smith came from a position of privilege, so she got off with a murder she definitely committed, but then a maid was convicted for a murder she didn't commit just because she wasn't of higher status.
Yep.
And there's all these different things about status and how respectability played a huge role in how people were treated, and it's a fascinating little chapter.
Another fun fact for you in terms of maids being wrongly accused of stuff. Spoiler alert, that is a subplot in Mary Shelley's Frankenstein.
Oh, in the novel?
In the novelle.
I don't think I've read the novelle.
It's wordy. It's good, but it's wordy.
Aren't they all?
As books were at that time.
All the classics.
All the classics are very wordy. The wordiest of all, it's got to be a toss-up between Hunchback of Notre Dame and Les Mis. I
have Hunchback. As a book is substantially smaller than Les Mis.
Yes.
I had to get Les Mis. I'm choking on an aero bubble.
Please don't do that. We need you.
Trixie's lying next to me doing absolutely nothing. Okay, it's down. We're good. My aero bubble went down the wrong hole. Now I've got chocolate tears.
That should be our title this week.
Yes, that is the conclusion to my 4 murders. Thank you very much.
Applause all round. Well done. That was
Join us
so
next
good.
week where I talk about something that's not a murder happening in Glasgow.
I know, the whole world's your oyster now.
It really is. I'm very excited.
Well done.
Thank you.
That was very good. I enjoyed that immensely. That was a good chat. Good story times. I enjoyed that a lot.
You're so welcome. Take it away, Hannah.
Should I go? Okay, so this week I have another kind of story time for you.
I look forward to it.
Thank you. And it's not necessarily set in Scotland, but it does feature two Scots people.
I'll allow it.
Thank you. So it's quite a strange kind of concept, but it's concerning a form of entertainment that we, as a perhaps more informed society, no longer kind of like attend.
Prescribe to, yeah.
Exactly.
Subscribe to.
We
knew what I meant.
I knew what you meant. That's fine. So, this is the acquisition of Anna Swan and Jenny Quigley by one Phineas Taylor Barnum.
What an excellent collection of names. I mean, Barnum's familiar.
Thank you very much. My 4-year degree is paying off in my titles for each week.
Fantastic.
I did a little bit of digging and found that in his employ, Barnum had 2 Scottish women.
I did not know this.
That is why I'm here.
They probably had beards.
They actually didn't, but they did have something in common, which I will get to.
Were they conjoined twins?
It's not that either.
Okay, cool.
It's not that either. But before we start, we interrupt this podcast recording to bring you this public service announcement. I have a little bit of a point to make here, and I hope you will indulge me for a few moments, because
Always.
It's something that I feel quite strongly about.
Mm-hmm.
And can we as like an arts society and society in general to a kind of extent, can we please stop glorifying Barnum?
Yes. In short.
Thank you. I take issue with the most famous depictions of him as a human, right? So, the arts, like kind of like our world wise, kind of like theatre musical wise, there's the Coleman, Stewart and Bramble's 1980 musical Barnum, which has some good music and asks a lot of the actor playing Barnum, such as like tightrope walking and circus acts, etc.
Yeah.
And it does portray the kind of like less nice side of him.
Yeah.
Because he was quite a problematic character. But The Greatest Showman really doesn't portray that side.
No.
And now, please don't come for me, people. I think The Greatest Showman as a film is a fantastic film. It's a spectacle, performances are great, visuals are great, music's excellent, excellent score by Pasek and Paul. We love that. But why did it have to be Barnum? I'm not knocking the film because it's a great film and people love it. And actually its message at its heart as being like confident in yourself and like your most truthful self is a message that we need to hear more often in society. But I take issue, or I will pose the question, is Barnum the best person to frame that with?
And I'm sure you're going to explain to us why that's not the case. And I know some examples myself, but I do look forward to hearing your argument. I have got
a couple of them before I get to the stories about Anna Swan and Jenny Quigley. Because I'm sorry, I just feel it really, as you can tell, it just really, really frustrates me. Because I think Barnum as a person was a super complex and interesting character. But it really annoys me that now people are reluctant to tell the darker side of his story and just kind of like play up the circus kind of like ringmaster side of it. It really frustrates me because I think there is an excellent story. If you were just to do a straight biopic of its life, I think it would be super fascinating. But
yeah, I could be wrong, but I'm sure that I heard that the reason Hugh Jackman pushed for The Greatest Showman to happen so hard was that he himself is a huge fan of P.T. Barnum, which makes me think that he's put blinders on to ignore the fact that P.T. Barnum was not a nice man.
Exactly. And again, there is the argument he was a man of his time and it was different values and it was different things back then. But we are now more informed as a society. We no longer look at these people as either oddities or freaks.
Yes.
We acknowledge that they have medical conditions and then we treat them as our equals and not our lessers or as a weird object of nature.
Yeah.
If Hugh Jackman was so desperate to play Barnum, why didn't he just play him in a straight biopic? It just, it frustrates me. So there's a couple of things that I take issue with when it comes to Barnum, right? The first, in both musicals, i.e. Barnum and The Greatest Showman, is the treatment of opera singer Jenny Lind. Mm-hmm. And this one really gets my goat. So I studied Jenny Lind in my third year of music. For as part of a course. I would like to point out that her and Barnum did not have a romantic relationship. Mm-hmm. That actually Jenny Lind found him incredibly abrasive and quite rude.
Quite right.
She did not like his relentless and slightly tacky marketing of her US tour. Yes, it made a lot of money. Yes, he was very good at marketing, but she didn't particularly like that. And also, fun fact for you, Jenny Lind donated all of her profits from her US tour, which is depicted in The Greatest Showman, to charity.
I read that after I saw the film, and she rose in my estimations greatly.
This is the issue. Both musicals kind of depict her as this like femme fatale that's wanting to like steal him away. That's not who Jenny Lind is. And actually, Jenny Lind was a super fascinating person in herself. It really irritates me that she's not given proper... Hashtag justice for Jenny Lind. Just saying.
Get it started. Get it trending.
Just saying. Oh my God.
And could I take a brief moment to also do my own...
Go for it.
Mini rant.
Go.
When you're doing a film, this is to all of the film producers and directors out there and casting directors. When you're doing a film, if you have to have a character sing, cast someone who will do the singing themselves. And don't cast Lauren Allred as the voice of Jenny Lind and then cast Rebecca Ferguson as the face of Jenny Lind. Either have Rebecca Ferguson sing or cast Lauren Allred as Jenny Lind herself. Because I remember when I saw the film, somebody tried to justify it saying, well, maybe Rebecca Ferguson looked more the part. I think Lauren Allred would have done an excellent job. She looks stunning. Not that being stunning is the be-all and end-all of playing the part, but I feel like she would have been as believable as Jenny Lind, as Rebecca Ferguson. And on top of that, if you're going to be casting someone who isn't singing live and they're going to lip sync to somebody else's voice, teach them to not breathe like someone who isn't a singer, because that gives it away to anyone who is a singer that person is miming. And it was very upsetting and distracting for me, and I would like to end this PSA here and now. Thank you very much for your time. On you go.
Thank you. I appreciate that and agree with that. Do you know why? Because Rebecca Ferguson and Jenny Lind do not look remotely alike.
Well, there you are.
Also, Jenny Lind was famed for calling herself plain and quite mousy looking.
Perfect.
She dressed very plainly. It's always written that she styled her hair in a simple braid, but the beauty was in her voice.
Perfect. Cast Susan Boyle. Done.
Perfect. The next time round, we know who's casting.
Boom.
So that's my first thing. Oh God, this is going to be a long episode tonight. My second one, now considering what we've just been talking about with poor Oscar. One thing that The Greatest Showman very conveniently just sort of glossed over was Barnum's first acquisition, if you like. Mm-hmm. So his first human kind of like purchase was actually through loopholing anti-slavery legislation in New York, because slavery was illegal at that point in New York, by renting black woman Joyce Heth for $1,000 a year.
You can't put a value on a human life.
Thank you.
That's all I can say.
Yep. And to make it worse, after Heth passed away in February 1836, Barnum charged 1,500 spectators 50 cents each to watch her autopsy live.
That is vile. I can just think of all the kind of early 19th century gore perverts.
Yep.
That's so disgusting.
And this was because, so he marketed her as being like, I can't remember, it was something like 130 years old or something ridiculous like that. And the reason they were cutting her up was to prove what age she was.
That's so grim. She's not a friggin' tree. You can't slice her in half and count her rings.
Exactly.
I call poo-poo to this whole thing.
It just, it infuriates me. There's also reports that Barnum sent henchmen to kidnap Aboriginal people so they could go on show in his Ethnological Congress of Strange Tribes in his museum.
Disgusting.
And Benjamin Rice, who is the author of The Showman and the Slave, which is a book about the more problematic areas of Barnum's life, he says, the story of Barnum's life we choose to tell is in part the story that we choose to tell about American culture. And it could go for all our cultures, general cultures in the whole. We can choose to erase things or dance around touchy subjects and present a kind of feel-good story, or we can use it as an opportunity to look at the very complex and troubling histories that our culture has been grappling with for centuries. Which I agree with, because in terms of like, Barnum as a person very much was a trailblazer when it came to marketing and how you market entertainment and theatre and buying crowds. And that's a very, like, I give him that. That was like an influential movement in terms of our industry.
Yeah.
But it irks me that his history is constantly glossed over in favour of the showman persona.
Yeah.
It really irks me. And purely because, as well, we now deem freak shows, quote unquote, as something Gothic, if you get my point. Which is why I'm covering this today, is because it is a form of entertainment that we now no longer attend or advocate because we are more educated as humans. That is the end of my public service announcement, and thank you all if you've got this far into the episode.
Yes, thank you for sticking with us. We feel our message is important.
We do feel our message is important. I particularly do. I just have a lot of feelings. I feel that Barnum's story is important to be told, but I worry that there's going to be a generation of people that genuinely believe that Barnum was Hugh Jackman. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, I can see that happening.
If you want to tell Barnum's story, just do a straight adaptation of his life. That's me just talking about the cruelty to humans. Do not get me started on what happened to his animals during the fire that burned down his museum. It's so horrific that I don't want to put it on this recording because it genuinely upsets me.
You know how I feel about animals.
Exactly. So I'm not going to go any further than that.
Thank you.
Let's get us to the Scottish ladies of the hour.
Let's do it.
I am going to tell you, firstly, about Anna Swan, because there is more about her written down. Mm-hmm. And then I'll tell you about Jenny Quigley, because I couldn't find as much on her, so her story kind of bookends this tale. So, Anna Haining Swan was born on the 6th of August 1846, one of 13 children of Alexander Swan and Anne Graham. Anna's father had emigrated from Dumfries to Nova Scotia, and her mother was Nova Scotian, whose ancestors came from the Orkneys. So she was like legit Scottish, like of Scottish descent. Anna started growing at a slightly unnatural, quote-unquote unnatural rate.
Okay.
So her parents and siblings were of average size, as was Anna when she was a baby. But by the time she was 5, Anna was 4 foot 8 inches and weighed over 7 stone. By 22, she was 7 foot 8 inches tall and weighed 25 stone. So, wow. Anna's a tall lady.
Oh, yes.
Very tall lady. And as a tall lady now, I can empathise with her. Okay, I'm not 7 foot 6, but that's besides the point. Anna's Scottish grandmother reportedly gave her this advice when, in regards to her sort of ever-increasing height. Mm-hmm. She said, "Stand tall, lass, and be proud of your Highland ancestry."
Lovely.
Which I think's a lovely little quote.
That's nice, Granny.
It was. So, in 1862, Barnum heard about Anna, and he sent an agent to New Annan, where the family were at the time, instructing them to bring back the 16-year-old Anna and her mother to New York. Writer Susan Swan says this of Anna's procurement. Barnum wanted her for his show, but Anna's parents were good Presbyterians and they thought he was basically the devil.
They're not far off.
Thank you very much. I would like to agree with that. So, the offer was Anna would earn $1,000 a month to be exhibited in Barnum's Museum on Broadway, and Anna stated that she also wished to continue with her education, so Barnum offered her a tutor for 3 hours daily, where she would also study voice and piano. Now, the thing is, a lot of Barnum's acts did become quite rich people. Mm-hmm. But if you do a bit of digging, there's a kind of common theme as to who was kind of paid a lot and who was not. And I'm sure you can work out for yourself what that would be.
Yeah.
The reason for that would be.
Mm-hmm.
Barnum advertised Anna as the tallest girl in the world at 8 foot 1 inch, although it is recorded that Anna was actually only 7 foot 10. She was given a costume allegedly made from 100 yards of satin and 50 yards of lace. In publicity and performance, she was contrasted with, there's a lot of names here, Commodore George Washington Morrison Nutt, who was a fellow performer who was only 29 inches tall and weighed approximately 1.7 stone.
Mm-hmm. I believe he features in The Greatest Showman.
I think he does, from what I recall. It's been a very long time since I've watched that film, actually.
Yeah.
I mean, from my rant, you probably have worked out why.
I have a sneaking suspicion.
Anyway, Anna became quite the star, being reportedly the only giantess in the world at that time, and she enjoyed talking to the crowds that flocked to see her. Barnum said of her, she was an intelligent and by no means ill-looking girl, and during the long period while she was in my employ, she was visited by thousands of persons, which is nice. Nice to see that she enjoyed performing.
Yeah, that's the main thing.
Because she was there by choice.
Ha 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 ha.
That's a big thing to do with it.
Yeah.
Anna also strived to be the epitome of the Victorian lady. So she was very much an avid follower of fashions at the time, including gowns with huge circular skirts and lovely decorated hats.
Nice.
So she was a stylish girl. But Anna almost burned to death during the 1865 fire that destroyed Barnum's museum. And it was a super nasty fire. Again, I say, if you like animals, don't read about what happened to the animals. Being too large to escape through a window and the stairs being engulfed in flames, Anna was actually lowered to the ground by block and tackle with reportedly 18 men holding the end of the rope in order to counterweight the contraption because she was so tall. After the museum was reconstructed, Anna returned to work there again, but it reportedly burned down again in 1868.
That's a quick turnaround.
A very quick turnaround.
Jeez, oh.
Yep. But, well, in 1871, Anna was on tour and met Martin Van Buren Bates, the 7'9", quote-unquote, Kentucky giant and officer in the Confederate Army. The couple were married. They fell in love and they got married on the 17th of June, 1871 in London at St Martin's in the Fields Church, which still exists. It still operates as a church and it's just adjacent to Trafalgar Square. So if you've ever walked up from Trafalgar Square as if you're going into like Covent Garden, you've probably walked past it.
I will have done. That's nice.
And they also, little shout out to St Martin's, they do a lot of like free music recitals as well.
Oh, that's good as well, yeah.
Yeah, which we enjoy. And fun fact for you, Anna's wedding dress was reportedly a gift from Queen Victoria.
Oh, back at it again.
Yeah, so Anna was pretty well known. So there must be some truth in that bit in The Greatest Showman when they all go and visit Queen Victoria. The couple had 2 children, but sadly, their children were a stillborn daughter and a son that weighed a reported 10.4 kilograms, and he sadly only lived for a few hours as well.
Aww.
Which is a shame.
That's really sad.
But they had each other, and in 1874, Martin bought a farm in Seville, Ohio, where they had a giant house built suitable to their statures. So they actually had a house built and like all their furniture made to their requirements.
For people who are in the 7-foot range.
Yeah, which is
that's cool.
So cool. I just love that. I just love that image. I think it's great.
Much better for their posture in the long run.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, we as tall people understand the slouching.
We do.
In 1878, Anna and her husband toured with the W.W. Cole Circus before they retired from show life. Martin continued to manage his farm, and Anna taught Sunday school at the local Baptist church. They had a relatively peaceful life, and Anna died in 1888, aged 41, from heart failure.
Oh.
So that's the story of Anna Swan.
Lovely.
Who was marketed as the tallest woman in the world, she of Scottish descent. This is now the story of Jenny Quigley. Jenny Quigley was born in Glasgow on the 20th of August 1850, the daughter of James Quigley and Jane Kerr Quigley, and the family moved to Brooklyn, New York in 1861. So I couldn't find much about Quigley's employment by Barnum, but I did find just a little bit about her career, and I just think she sounded like a brilliant human being. Both these women just sound fantastic. So Quigley was hired by Barnum in 1863, publicising her as the Queen of Scotland and the smallest woman in the world.
Oh.
Yeah. So Jenny was described...
all here in Scotland.
Yeah. It must be a Scottish thing. Jenny was described early in her career as being under 2 feet tall. At age 18, she was 28 inches tall. At age 28, she was said to be 36 inches. And by the time she retired in 1917, she was 41 inches tall, which is approximately 3 foot 4 inches.
Wow. Dinky.
Quigley toured with the Lilliputian Comic Opera Company from 1877 until at least 1901, working with fellow sideshow performers including Commodore Nutt, who Anna worked with, Charles W. Nestle, Admiral Dot, and Queenie Foot. In an 1877 review of operetta Jack the Giant Killer for the Cincinnati Enquirer, it says of Jenny, Miss Quigley is a finished little actress, perfect in figure, pretty of face, and graceful in movement. Her voice is clear and under good control, and in her dances she would make many a professed prima danseuse blush. Her 28 inches reached as high as the heart of every person in the house.
That's a lovely quote.
Isn't that a lovely little review?
Yeah.
And so she was very much accomplished in her art, which is brilliant. I friggin' love it that she actually thrived in that environment. It is reported that as part of her act, Jenny would make a grand entrance on stage in a miniature carriage pulled by a Shetland pony. A royal coachman would open the door for her, bow to her, and then assist Jenny down onto the stage.
That's really sweet.
Isn't that great? Also, that is like the level of extra that I strive for in my daily life.
Yeah, just rolling up to Morrison's. I've arrived.
In 1897, after meeting fellow performer, hypnotist Madame Mozart, the two women devised a double act together.
Adorable.
I could not find anything else on this act. I found a picture of the two of them, which I'll pop on the Instagram and Facebook page at A Wee Bit Gothic. But I was like, there's a story in here somewhere.
I love that.
Which I just thought was great. I was like, I want to know what this act was. But there was just, I don't know if I was just looking in the wrong places. And also, quite a lot of the information on her is in books, but books that aren't like readily available, unfortunately. Yeah. So sadly, I didn't get as much information about Jenny. But Jenny Quigley died in Chicago in 1936, aged 85.
Solid age.
Yeah, quite an age. And Jenny Quigley had quite the performing life.
Yeah.
By the sounds of it. I had absolutely no idea that there had been Scottish people in Barnum's employ. And I just thought that made for a really interesting story with regards to something that we now deem as Gothic. We don't have freak shows. We don't have oddities or anything like that anymore because we deem it cruel.
Yeah,
now.
Totally. It's a form of monetized bullying.
Yeah, basically. So when I happened across these stories, I was like, I just love this. And also, I enjoyed the fact that they thrived in what they did. And they were very much both strong women that were in charge of their own work and of their own finances, and that they could negotiate their own deals. And I was like, this is just brilliant. I just loved that whole idea about it, that the fact that they took what was seemed to be like their freakishness and frigging owned it.
Yeah, and they are the whole message that we try to get from The Greatest Showman. It sounds like they kind of embodied it, but in real life.
Exactly. Why are we not telling this story?
Yeah. Where were they in The Greatest Showman?
Yeah. Like, sorry, but why did the focus have to be on him? When you've got these two brilliant women, the tallest women in the world and the smallest women in the world, respectively.
Did you say that they ever worked together, or were they kind of out of sync with each other?
Well, let me check. 1863 and 18. No, it looks like their time might have overlapped.
Fabulous. I like to think that they probably had some kind of Scottish little two-hander.
Wouldn't that be
moment?
Friggin' great?
That would be fab.
Oh, I just love that idea.
I like the idea that they did a little sketch where they talked about each other and their statures, but they talked about it the wrong way round.
Yeah.
That would be funny.
Oh my God, that would be so good. I do have an interest in kind of like the Victorian freak show and the ethics about it, and just I think everyone that likes Gothic stuff has gone through that phase of like being like fascinated by the kind of like the ideas behind it and the marketing and the acts and stuff like that. Not necessarily because of what their quote unquote oddity was, but more so about the treatment and the ethics and all that kind of stuff behind it, because it is such a frowned upon form of entertainment now. I just really enjoyed the fact that there was a Scottish link to both the greatest and perhaps the most corrupt and immoral showman that we've seen. So that was the acquisition of Anna Swan and Jenny Quigley by one Phineas Taylor Barnum.
Wonderfully done.
Thank you very much. That took way longer than I was intending, but that's because I have a lot to say in the matter.
Yeah, absolutely fair enough. Yeah, excellent. I was slightly concerned at the beginning of your story that you were going to alienate our smaller viewers by talking about a tall person. The fact you brought it right round to the other end of the scale, really just welcoming everybody into the listenership.
Thank you.
Yeah.
we endeavour to do so.
We are nothing if not inclusive.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So that is my story for this week, and I do apologize.
Wonderful.
For anyone that has reached this point in the podcast, I applaud you.
Yeah, no, this one will probably be very lengthy, but if you don't like a lengthy podcast, that's your problem.
Exactly. There was a lot of material.
There was a lot of material, but the beauty of a podcast is you choose your own interval.
That's a very good point.
You can bow out when you want to, but you have to come back. So
yeah, please come back. We always appreciate it if you come back.
We like people to see things through. We don't like disappointments.
We don't like. We don't like flakiness.
No, it's the worst.
We don't like that. It is the worst.
Well, there we are. We have concluded the Quartet of Murders.
Yes.
And we can, you're still killing it, doing quite the variety of stuff. And I'm looking forward to joining you in the variety show by bringing something else to the table. I want to talk about something that's not a murder. I love murder. I'm excited to tell you some of the other stuff that I love.
Yeah, I've got a feeling that true crime might feature heavily.
I think so too. True crime and ghosts are two of my specialties. So
exactly.
But I think I know what I'm going to do next week, and I'm very excited about it.
I don't. Oh, shall we perhaps hint to our listeners what they might expect?
Yes.
Over the next few weeks or so.
The festive period.
Now that it is upon us.
Yes. We are going to try and continue doing things as normal over the festive period. Mm-hmm. So we release our episodes at midnight on a Friday. So you can expect that to happen all throughout December. That includes Christmas Day and New Year's Day. We are going to have episodes for you for those. We are going to try and make them festive. We are still figuring out what that will entail, but they will be festive. Mm-hmm. But we have some bonus episodes for you.
We do.
Would you like to share the news?
Over the Christmas season, we are going to be bringing you the first 2 of our wee Gothisodes. So, in getting in the Christmas spirit, Chris and I will be doing readings of ghost stories by M.R. James.
Yes, indeed.
They're going to be little small solo episodes where we're going to each read you a little creepy story, because who doesn't love a ghost story at Christmas?
Exactly.
And also because you've been so lovely so far, it's a wee bit of bonus content in there for you as well.
And we have just decided of late that those are going to be called Wee Gothisodes.
Very, very recently.
Yeah, you'd think even within the last 2 minutes.
Yes, indeed.
So, we will hopefully, if people enjoy them, do those kinds of things in the future. And eventually, if people start writing in and they have their own ghost stories or their own murder stories, then they could feature in a Wee Gothisode. So, that will be fun. And we're looking forward to giving them a bash.
Indeed.
Yeah. So, but continue with us for the Fridays to come before Christmas arrives. Those bonus Gothisodes will be the week of Christmas, a couple of days before Christmas, and then the other one will be between Christmas and New Year. So, yes.
There's plenty of Gothic to get you through the Christmas season this year.
Absolutely. What else are we going to be doing but trapped in our houses?
And probably eating our weights in chocolate, which is what I will be doing with my time. Don't know about anybody else, but personally, that's what I'm going to be doing.
That's what Christmas is all about. So, yes, as always, thank you so much for sticking with us. And don't forget to subscribe and like and comment and share and spread the news, because we're really enjoying doing what we're doing and we want to keep doing it. And
we are, we really, really are getting a kick out of this.
We are.
Not going to lie.
I get a kick out of you. How does that song go? Don't know.
Something like that.
Yeah, something just like that. As always, pop onto Instagram to see the photos relating to the episode and leave us comments about your thoughts on the episodes, or email us at on awebitgothic at gmail.com. And we also have a Facebook page now, so please go along there and like as well.
Yes, please do. Was that Gothic?
A wee bit.